Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shante Shante Shante. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, so Hari Om everyone. Today's session might be a little longer than what we normally have. So I tried to condense chapter 2 as much as I could, but there's just so much there. And the second point is that from here onwards, I would like everybody to come at 6:23. So maybe from 6:20 to 6:23, Kishanji, maybe we can find a nice 3-minute bhajan. 6:23 to 6:30 will be the chanting of Sthitaprajna Lakshana. Akash has made one nice video of all the words with the meaning. So you don't have to look in your book. You can just look at the screen. I know we're not supposed to have any desires, but my desire is that we must all memorize Sthitaprajna Lakshana from chapter 2. These are verses 54 to 72, so that they can serve as great reminders, powerful reminders in our lives. And as and when we proceed in the Bhagavad Gita, we will highlight certain verses that should be memorized really, because it really makes a difference when we memorize these words. We can contemplate on them much, much deeper. You don't need anything. When you're walking, you can just think, Prajahati yada kaman. How beautiful is that? And you just keep thinking and thinking about that verse. Okay? So if you can do this for me, I would appreciate it. It's a very important section of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, let's proceed with the conclusion. We will first read verses 69 to 71. We'll review a little bit, then we'll go to 72. From 69. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti advata tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantimapnoti na kamakami vihaya kamanya sarvan pumanscharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantimadhigacchati. So last week we saw very beautiful verses. One is that which is night, in verse 69, that which is night to all beings is day to this samyami, to this well-controlled Sthitaprajna. What is night? That Brahman. That Brahman is night to all those beings, all ignorant beings, because they don't know about Brahman. They're ignorant of Brahman, so it's like night to them. But to that Sthitaprajna is ever awake to that truth, that awareness. And that which all the beings are awake to, that the Sthitaprajna is asleep to. What is that? So in the second line, all the ignorant people are awake to this world of duality, rather this reality of duality, thinking that the world is so real, so full of pleasure, so full of fulfillment, that they run after it, we run after it, we pursue it. To that, the Sthitaprajna is asleep. They're asleep to this world of names and forms. So this is one very beautiful difference. Sthitaprajna and a regular person sees the same world. They see the same world. We're seeing Omicron, they're seeing Omicron. We're feeling cold, they're feeling cold. We are seeing so many various people, they're seeing so many various people. But what's the difference? Their attention is on that pure awareness within. Our attention is on the names and forms. And this is why we are fools, right? In Bhajagovindam, what is called a fool, somebody who F-O-O-L, focuses on the outer and on the lower, is called fool. So we focus on the outer, we focus on the lower, we focus on things that are so tangible. But the Sthitaprajna always focuses on that reality within. In verse 70, we saw that the Sthitaprajna is like an ocean that never gets flooded. So even if people from all over bring them so many objects of desires, so many objects of desires. Kama here means objects of desires, but it doesn't increase their bliss or decrease their bliss because they're already full. So people can flood them with so many things, but it doesn't increase or decrease what their state is, because their state is of fullness. And why is that? Because they are based on stillness. As we see, the ocean, if you go deep into the ocean, it's completely still. If we go deep into the Sthitaprajna, they're completely still. They function in the realm of movement, but they are ever in stillness. And so this is a Sthitaprajna. How do we get there? 4 things we have to do based on verse 71. You let go of what? The first step is to let go of, if we let go of all I-ness means individuality, identifying with the ego. If we let go of I-ness, then eventually mine-ness will be let go of, because something is only mine when I am I. When I am I, this being, then I have my family, my community, my home, etc. So let go of I-ness, let go of mine-ness. And when mine-ness is let go of, then desires also are let go of, and cravings. What are these desires? We saw these external desires, bahya, external desires for the world, abhyantara, internal desires in the mind, sankalpas, imaginations, and vasanas, desires in the form of vasanas which have not yet been expressed. And cravings are those things which we've experienced something and we want to experience it again. That's called craving. It comes in, we've already experienced it and we can't wait to have it again. If you have a craving for the Bhagavad Gita class, that is very good. Don't drop that. But cravings for the world, you can go ahead and drop. So these 4 things, he says, drop and sashanti madhigacchati. Sashanti madhigacchati means we'll attain peace. Means what? We are already peace. We are already peace. no need to attain peace. All the ashanti, all the disturbances, all the agitations will go. The seat of agitation is the ego. So there's a question here. Craving is the rasa. Craving is, so in this specific verse, craving means I've experienced something and I want to experience it again, right? So yes, you can equate it to rasa. In that Vishaya Vinivartante, in that verse, rasa means vasana, to be very specific. But you can equate it together. Okay, now we go to verse 72, the last verse of this chapter. So let us read. Esha Brahmi Sthite Partha.
Esha Brahmi Sthite Partha.
Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati.
Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati.
Sthitva Syamantakaalepi.
Sthitva Syamantakaalepi.
Brahma Nirvanam Richati.
Brahma Nirvanam Richati.
Esha Brahmi Sthite Partha. Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati. Sthitva Syamantakaalepi. Brahma Nirvanam Richati. Esha, this, Sthitihi, this state of Brahman, O Partha, Arjuna, Prapya, having obtained or attained this state, na enam vimuhyati. So enam prapya means having attained this state, na vimuhyati, one is not deluded anymore. Sthitva asya, being established in this state, antakale, even at the end of the life, Brahma Nirvanam Richati, one attains Brahman. So this is the Brahmic state. O son of Pritha, attaining this, enam, attaining this, none is deluded. Being established therein, even at the end of life, one attains to oneness with Brahman. What does this mean? Okay, so first let's get one thing very, very straight. Brahman does not need to be attained. When in our scriptures it says, attain Brahman, Brahman does not need to be attained, cannot be attained, should not be attained, because you already are that. Already, here and now, we are that pure consciousness, awareness, we are that pure self. And absolutely nothing can change that. So the first misconception that we have to get rid of is this, trying to become Brahman. That's the first misconception. If we take ourselves to be the body, can the body become Brahman? Brahman, we know, is something that's changeless, something that's changeless, something that's awareness, something that's bliss. Can the body become Brahman? Just think. Can the body become changeless? Can it become changeless? It cannot. It cannot, because it's changing every day. And that's a direct experience. You and I see that. Can this body become awareness? No, it cannot. It doesn't have awareness, cannot speak, cannot be aware of anything. And this body is definitely not an abode of bliss. We all know so many aches, pains, everything in the body that happens. So this body cannot become Brahman. Now, okay, let me take my mind. Can my mind become Brahman? Is this path to realization the mind becoming Brahman? Can the mind become Brahman? Can the mind become changeless? Just think about it. Absolutely not. The mind's nature is sankalpa vikalpa. It will go up and down, and then at certain times, nishchayatmika, it will be determined. It fluctuates between these two. For some people, there's more nishchaya, there's more determination, there's less sankalpa vikalpa. For some people, it's the other way around. But the mind will always fluctuate between these two. And the mind will always be in the realm of sattva, rajas, tamas. So the mind cannot be changeless eternally. Your mind cannot become Brahman. There's no way. There's no way the mind can become Brahman. And the mind itself is inert. It cannot work on its own. It is not awareness. And the mind is definitely not an abode of bliss. So the body cannot become Brahman. The mind cannot become Brahman. And definitely this ego, the sense of individuality, cannot become Brahman because it keeps changing based on what the ego identifies with. It changes. One day I am a great seeker. I woke up early. I am a great seeker. The next day, oh my gosh, I did this wrong. I spoke harshly to somebody. I'm a bad seeker. Keeps changing. So when I'm a good seeker, I feel more Brahman. Percent of Brahman. It's up. And when I'm a bad seeker, I feel less Brahman. This is what we feel. But the reality is that we cannot become Brahman. We cannot. The body cannot become Brahman. The mind cannot become Brahman. The ego cannot become Brahman. If this is what our pursuit in life is, we will fail. We will fail. So whenever in the scriptures it says, attain Brahman, attain Nirvana, what that means is realize yourself to be already that. You're already that. Your nature, my nature is already awareness, consciousness, bliss. It's already that. Because our real nature is not the body, not the mind, not the intellect. It's already that. So even if we don't want to be Brahman, we are already Brahman. We are never far away from Brahman. So when it says here, first we look at Brahma Nirvanam Vrichati. When it says attain Brahma Nirvana, what Nirvana here means, this word Nirvana means blown away. It comes from that Vata. Vata means air. Nirvata becomes Nirvana, blown away. Doesn't mean Brahman is blown away. That ignorance is blown away. What ignorance is blown away? That I have to become Brahman. That I have to attain Brahmanhood. No, we are already Brahman. That ignorance is blown away. And that actually blows us away, right? So what do you do then? So what this says is, now that you know who you are, now that you know your real nature, Esha Brahmi Stitihi Prapya means attain this state. What state? Stay steady in it. Remain in it. Be in it. Abide in it. This is called Sthitaprajna. The Sthitaprajna is very clear. I can only be Brahman. It's impossible not to be Brahman. And I cannot, it's not that I can be Brahman in some time or in some place. I already am that. But what I need to work on is just immersing myself in that truth and being steady in it. That is called Sthitaprajna. That is the state that we're talking about. So when it says here, this Brahmic state, it means this state of the Sthitaprajna where they're abiding in that. And is it such an abidance that it's very hard to do? I have to abide in Brahman, I have to abide in Brahman. For a Sthitaprajna, remember, it is effortless. It's an effortless abidance. It is natural. Why is it so natural for them? Because remember, they put a lot of effort. Effortless takes a lot of effort. To effortlessly abide in state, In this state, it took a lot of effort in their own sadhana, in their own swadhyaya, study, reflection, understanding. Because of all of that effort, they're effortlessly abiding in this state. It's effortless. So who is a Sthitaprajna? We learned it's somebody to whom all of this is so natural. Goodness is natural. Virtues, they don't have to practice a virtue because they are the embodiment of that virtue. Guruji writes about Swami Tapovan Maharaj. Who is Swami Tapovan Maharaj? Sannyasa, renunciation, was looking for somewhere to reside. And it was thinking, where will I reside? And finally, it found Swami Tapovana. That is what it is. They're an abode of virtue. So they don't need to practice it. It is their nature. Esha Brahmi Stitihi Partha Prapya. Having attained this state, this steadiness, sthirata, na vimuhyati. They will not be deluded again. Means somebody, some people doubt that, let's say I gain knowledge. Let's say I gain knowledge. Is there a chance for me to be ignorant again? Is there a chance for me to forget this knowledge? Is there a chance for me to fail in this knowledge? The answer is yes, if the knowledge is not steady. If the knowledge is asthita, it's not firm, it's not steady, it hasn't gone deep, then yes, there's a chance for forgetfulness, there's a chance of slip, there's a chance of fall. But when the knowledge has gone very deep and it's very firm, there is no more question of falling. There's no question of falling, because where will you fall? How can you fall? You're ever in that state, and the knowledge has gone deeper than thought. It's not a mere intellectual thought or something that I read or something that I listened to. It's become part and parcel of one's being. So when something has become so much part and parcel of one's being, you cannot fall. It's very hard. It's very, very hard to fall. For us, it's easy to fall. For them, it's hard to fall. It seems unnatural. Adharma seems unnatural. Being very rude and inconsiderate and insensitive seems so unnatural. It's hard for them to do. So from this place of steadiness, there is no more delusion possible. No more. That means that person is done. But as I said, if the knowledge is not firm, if it's not steady, yes, there's a possibility of forgetfulness. Yes, that will happen. And don't think that, oh my God, what if I'm in that state where, yes, I'm forgetting sometimes I'm remembering, sometimes I'm forgetting. That is a great place to be in. Because don't think the Sthitaprajna also started on a journey. They didn't just become Sthitaprajna like that. They also came through this stage where, yes, I'm forgetting sometimes. Yes, I'm able to apply sometimes. Yes, I'm forgetting. Yes, I'm able to apply. They also came through this stage. So this stage is part of our journey. So it's perfectly okay if that's where we are. As long as we know that we still have to strive. We still have to strive to remain absolutely firm. Some people will say, but you're Brahman anyway. Why this striving? Why all of this? You must see, fall is possible. You will see there were some great masters in our tradition. Unfortunately, because of something or the other, fall happened. Unfortunately, our rishis, Vishvamitra, unfortunately, somehow fall happened. This is because there's no sthirata. This is the reason. So we want to be in a place where we're absolutely safe, secure. That's what it is. jnana rakshana, protection of that knowledge. Now, somebody might say, but now it's too late. It's too late. I'm learning Sthitaprajna Lakshana. I'm already in my 70s. It's too late for me. Am I ever going to achieve this? The answer, he says, is Anta Kale Api. Even in the end of one's life. Even in the end of one's life, if this realization takes place and this steadiness takes place, that person will understand that they are ever free. Freedom is in your hands. So don't think that I came to Vedanta so late, that now I don't know if I can be able to live up to this. I don't know if I can be steady. You will, you can, because Antakaleapi, even in the end of life, if one realizes their real nature, they're ever free. And let me tell you something. Whenever this hits you, that is the right time. Don't ever think that I wish I got this knowledge years ago, and I wish years ago I started on this journey. Because years ago, it would not work on you and me. I always think that I came to this too late. I always wish maybe I should have been younger. But then I realized when I went to the course that this was the right time, because I would have been so immature. Not that I was really mature, I was still immature, but I would have been more immature, and I would have not been able to take in whatever was being spoken to me. So wherever we are, whatever place and space in life we are, that is the right time. That time means we have the maturity and the ability to take this knowledge in. Therefore, don't take it for granted. This verse also tells us that our whole life should be for this purpose only, alone. The purpose of life is the realization of this truth of the self. Realize the self here and now, and revel in that bliss. Stay in that bliss. Shastra wants us to be in that bliss, wants us to be in that fullness of bliss. So Shastra, Shruti Mata, our Guru Parampara is saying, realize it now. Be in that bliss now. What are we waiting for? What could be more important in life? So Esha Brahmi Stitihi. This steadiness, Prapya, Ainam Prapya, having attained it, na vimuhyati, one will not get eluded again. Stitva asyam antakale api, even if it's at the end of life, Brahma nirvanam richati. One will realize that they are ever free. They have always been free. And their nature is freedom. This is Sthitaprajna Lakshana. We will chant the last verse of chapter 2, the conclusion portion. Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat.
Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu.
Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu.
Upanishatsu.
Upanishatsu.
Brahma Vidyayam.
Brahma Vidyayam.
Yoga Shastre.
Yoga Shastre.
Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade.
Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade.
Sankhya Yogo Nama.
Sankhya Yogo Nama.
Dvitiyodhyayaha.
Dvitiyodhyayaha.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayaha. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat means, we will see it in the Bhagavad Gita, it will come. Om Tat Sat is a very, very beautiful mantra that whenever we do something, and let's say we have done something wrong in the midst of it, something was incomplete, something was wrongly said, that Om Tat Sat is a remembrance of God. That means everything is okay. God forgive us for whatever wrong we've done, and that Om Tat Sat is to make up for any wrong thing that we've done. So that is a very beautiful mantra. That's why when we do puja, we say Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu. So anything wrong we've done, please forgive us. And the name of God alone purifies all the wrongdoings. And the name of God is Om, that truth. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat iti, thus Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. In this Bhagavad Gita, the song of the Lord, Upanishadsu, which is the essence of all Upanishads. Brahma Vidyayam, which is a knowledge of Brahman. Yoga Shastre, in the Shastra of Yoga. Here it means that in that yoga also, it tells us the application. It tells us what to do and how to fulfill this knowledge in our lives. And this is the beautiful discourse between Krishna and Arjuna, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. And the name of the chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, means the yoga of knowledge, and Dvitiyodhyaya. This is the second chapter. So thus, with God's grace and Gurudev's blessings, we have concluded the second chapter. And if there were any mistakes or wrongdoings, we seek the forgiveness of Bhagavan and Guru Parampara with Om Tat Sat. Today, now, we will review what has happened so far. Second chapter is a very big chapter. I don't know if we'll be able to complete the review. Sthitaprajna shlokas are from 54 to 72 till the end. But we will do whatever we can this class for this review. Okay? All right. So I will share my screen. The review will be through a PowerPoint, through Google Slides rather, because it's easier then, so you can also see the verses as I talk about them. I will, when we look at chapter 2, I will start with chapter 1 a little bit and chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the summary of our whole life. It's what happens in our entire life, this chapter 2. It's a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. It's a summary of our entire life. If we are become very, very firm just on even knowing this chapter thoroughly, we would have understood the essence of all of the scriptures. So it's a very important chapter. If we can go through it again, that would be wonderful in our own time and reflect deeply on that. How does chapter 2 come about? Chapter 1, we saw, is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. It means the yoga of Arjuna's grief. Yoga, union. So what united Arjuna is what united Arjuna with the higher, with the truth, was his grief. So chapter 1 was all about Arjuna's grief, and this grief united him with the higher. What happened in chapter 1? What happened in chapter 1 was Arjuna broke down. We all saw this. His limbs failed, his mouth was parched, his body was quivering, mind was whirling. He said, I cannot stand. And he said, the Gandiva is slipping from my hand. completely broke down when he was placed in the middle of the army and he saw Bhishma, Drona, etc. So because he broke down, chapter 2 comes in called Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means Atma. But what this indicates is the yoga of Atma Vidya, the yoga of knowledge of Atma. Because here, this chapter is all about knowledge. This unites us to the higher. How does chapter 2 break down? So here I've given the verses. I'll share this with you so you don't have to worry so much. But chapter 2, we can see in 10 topics. 10 topics, and we will see briefly what the 10 topics are. These are the 10 topics. And then we go from there. Now, the first, I'm only going to highlight the important things in the topics. Everything's important, but the highlights. Topic 1 is Arjuna expresses his emotions. So, you know, in chapter 2, when it opens up, Arjuna, you know, he's still very he's vishidantam. He's like totally in grief. And Lord Krishna tries to lift him up, but he's still expressing how he's feeling. He's saying, I can't do this. I can't fight the war. How can I harm my teachers, etc. So he expresses all of his doubts. In verses 1 to 10, all of this takes place. He expresses all of his doubts. And what's beautiful is that he seeks advice from Lord Krishna and he surrenders to Lord Krishna. This is the most beautiful thing about Arjuna. He clearly has so many doubts. He's clearly confused. And this is a master verse where he tells Lord Krishna, this is what I have. I have karpanya dosha. It means that my heart is overpowered by pity. I know my dharma, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I'm dharma samudha cheta. I mean, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm thinking, how am I supposed to do that? Why should I kill my teachers? Why should I kill my relatives? I'm quite confused here. So he actually tells Lord Krishna, these are my problems. He makes his own diagnosis. And he tells Lord Krishna, now you tell me what is good for me, and I have become your student. I am your disciple. Now this is very beautiful. Because Arjuna surrenders to Lord Krishna becomes so happy because now he can teach. Because the wise people, they don't say much. Only when people surrender, then they will say, they will teach, they will impart. But if not, the wise person is very happy. Why should they do anything? So because of Arjuna's surrender, we get the Bhagavad Gita. So surrender means really acknowledging there's a higher power. Sometimes we don't know what's best for us. So there's a higher power who knows what's best, and seeking guidance from that power to be an instrument of fulfilling the divine vision. So we become one with that vision. We start to understand that vision. This is Arjuna's greatness. In this, we must also see what made Arjuna surrender. It's because Lord Krishna was such a good listener. Lord Krishna, Arjuna must have ranted on some 30 verses in chapter 1, some 5-6 verses in chapter 2. Lord Krishna patiently listened the whole time. He did not interrupt, he did not talk, he did not question Arjuna. He just sat there and listened. And because he sat there and listened, Arjuna was able to express everything. Everything he expressed. And because of that, Arjuna said, I surrender to you. That's what makes Lord Krishna a phenomenal teacher. He sat quietly and listened to his student. Now, Lord Krishna said, listen, Arjuna, your problem is not death, it's delusion. You keep thinking that I don't want to kill my relatives, I don't want to harm them. How can I live in this world with their blood stains everywhere? How can I do this? Lord Krishna said it's not death. Arjuna was a kshatriya. He was a warrior. How many people he must have killed before? Endless number of people. What his problem was? Delusion. We have no problem with death because people die every day. We have no problem. We're getting the news. So many people are dying. We have no problem. My relative dies. That is the problem. So the problem is not death. It's delusion. This is all of our problems. They are my relatives. They belong to me. I belong to them. This is the problem. And this problem is because we are ignorant. We think we are the body, the mind, the intellect. We don't know that we are Atma. We don't know that we are the self. So Lord Krishna, from verses 11 to 25, talks to Arjuna about the nature of the self, because he says, Arjuna, your sorrow is not because of death, it's because of delusion. And that delusion is because you are ignorant. And so he tells Arjuna this very beautiful verse. This is where Bhagavan, Adi Shankaracharyaji's commentary starts. Ashochan anvashochastvam prajna vadancha bhashase katasu nagatasuncha na anushochanti pandidaha. He says the wise, they grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. You grieve for those who deserve not to be grieved for. The wise do not grieve for living or for the dead. So what does this mean? So Lord Krishna slowly elaborates his teaching. He tells Arjuna in the succeeding verses that Arjuna, you are changeless. Nothing can happen to you. You are that which it's changeless. Your body can change from young age to teenage years to middle age to old age. Your body can change, but you are that changeless Atma. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. You are that changeless Atma. And you are eternal. You are never born. And you cannot die. You will never die. There was never a time where I wasn't there, nor there was a time where you were not there. We are eternal. And he tells Arjuna that you are consciousness. You are not the doer. You are not the enjoyer. You are that pure awareness which illumines everything. You cannot be the killer. You cannot be the killed. You are the awareness in which everything happens. So why is it that the wise don't grieve? The wise don't grieve because they know they are not the wave, they are the water. We all know this illustration in Vedanta, the wave and the water. What happens is the essence of the wave is water. The essence of the ego is this Atma, is the self. Those who are ignorant keep focusing on the wave. And so for the wave, of course, there is birth. For the wave, there is death. For the wave, there is change. There is ups and downs. For the waves, there's a bigger wave coming to me. There is fear. There's all kinds of emotions when we think we're a wave. When we think we're the ego, there's everything. But when we know we are water, where is the joy? Where is the sorrow? Where is the fear? We are water. Not only we are water, there's only one water. Everybody is water. Water alone. So the wise do not grieve because they understand their imperishable nature. But those who are ignorant grieve because they are focusing on this wave. They're focusing on this wave that's going up and down. Arjuna says, what if I can't focus on that? Lord Krishna says, okay, have titiksha, have endurance, right? it should say objects are impermanent here. Objects are impermanent. Objects will come and go, so endure them, right? If there's such a really terrible situation, hard situation, so hard to deal with, it's okay. It will come, it will go. You deal with it. Have titiksha. We elaborated also quite a lot on titiksha, so I won't do that here, but you can see your notes on what we did. But he says to the deeper level, objects are really unreal. This is a very important verse, verse number 16. Na sato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayor api drishtontaha, stvanayo sattvadarshi. It says that unreal has no being, and there's no non-being of the real. So he says that objects are unreal because they appear and disappear in your awareness. So level 1, objects are disturbing me. Okay, they're temporary. Don't worry about it. They'll come and go. But level 2, objects are unreal. They're just like appearing and disappearing. They're just like the movie and you are the screen. They have no independent reality. Because that which is real is that which is always there. There's no non-being of it. That which is real is always there. That which is unreal, that changes. So here he says, look, reality is that which doesn't change. So again, everything is changeless. Everything is that water. In essence, the names and forms are the waves. The names and forms are the waves. They keep changing and changing. What makes up names and forms? The ego is the wave. The world is also a wave. It goes up, it goes down. But the water is Atman. The essence of the wave is this water. That alone is real. I'm going a little bit quickly here because we have seen these before. This is just to really strike something, hopefully, that we've covered in the past. So the power, things, beings, experiences, people have the power to hurt us, to harm us, only if we give them reality. So you see here, it's a virtual reality, right? There's nothing there. There's nothing there. But because we think it's real, we get so caught up in it. This is a rope. But because we think it's a snake, we become afraid, we want to run away, we want to do all kinds of things. So only when we give things undue reality, then they can affect us. They can unnerve us. They can disturb us. So Lord Krishna is really trying to bring Arjuna to a very deep, deep point. He tells Arjuna, you are that reality. What reality? You cannot be the body, O Arjuna, because in the waking, dream, and deep sleep state, body is there in the waking, but not there in dream and deep sleep. We have no notion of the body. You cannot be the senses, Arjuna, because yes, you have a notion of it in the waking, but in the dream and deep sleep, no notion. Cannot be the mind, because although you have a notion of it in waking and dream, no notion whatsoever in deep sleep. You cannot be the ego, because although you have the notion of it in waking and dream, none in deep sleep. But you are the self, because the self is that which is always there throughout all three states, whether waking, dream, or deep sleep. You are that changeless reality, and everything else is an appearance on that. And that is how to really overcome grief, is to know your nature, to know who you are. And here is a very popular verse where it says that even if the body dies, nothing will happen to the self. Weapons cannot touch it, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it. The self is absolutely indestructible because you are not life. So you must remember this, that you are not life, you are existence. The minute you think you are life, of course life will be destructible. But we are deeper, deeper than life. We are existence. And therefore, avinashi, indestructible. So the question comes then, but who dies? So very clearly, Lord Krishna in the next few verses, he talks from the standpoint of the body and the soul. These are verses 26 to 30. He says, look, the body will perish. It will perish because that's the dharma of the body. It is born, it must die. This is something you cannot avoid. When will the body go? When the prarabdha karma is over, this body will perish. That will happen. What about the soul, or sometimes called the jiva or ego? This word soul, sometimes people refer to it as jiva or ego, sometimes self. So I'm just putting all here in one context. Best is to use the Sanskrit terms, but I'm using these terms also so that if someone has a notion of transmigrating soul, that's not Atma. What will happen to this soul? It will take up a new body. It will take up a new body as long as it's in the realm of ignorance. As long as we don't realize the self, it will take up a new body according to karma and vasana. What happens to Atma? Atma, existence, cannot die. So nothing happens to Atma. Nothing happens to Atma. Remember here, I gave you the example of the sun and the bucket of water and the reflection of the sun in the water. So the bucket of water, the bucket being the gross body, the water being the subtle body, the reflection of the sun being the jiva, and the sun, of course, being Atma. So when the bucket goes, yes, the water and reflection will go into another bucket. Yes, but nothing happens to the sun. You are that sun. You are that sun. Nothing will happen to you. Arjuna finds this too deep. He finds this too deep. Sometimes also we find it too deep. So Lord Krishna says, okay, come. I'm coming now to the standpoint of dharma. So in the next few verses, he speaks about why Arjuna should fight this war from the standpoint of dharma. He says, look at your swadharma. You are a kshatriya. And therefore, because you're a kshatriya, because your dharma is to protect justice, you must engage in this war. In fact, there's nothing higher than a righteous war for kshatriya. So here, in topics 4 and 5, he tells Arjuna why he should engage in this battle from the standpoint of dharma in the world. So one we saw from the standpoint of swadharma, it's his dharma because he's a kshatriya. The second is shishtachara. If he fights, the gates of heaven are open to him and he won't incur any sin. And from the worldly standpoint, if he doesn't fight, Lord Krishna also gave this standpoint. People will talk about him. People will say such unspeakable things. They'll criticize his strength. They'll say that Arjuna ran away from the battlefield. They will speak about all these things. So Lord Krishna also brought this standpoint to Arjuna. So just see, from great heights, he comes to this level, all to cater to Arjuna and to cater to us too. Because sometimes it's hard for us to understand. Okay, so then what happens? So then here's a very, very beautiful verse, topic 6. Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, engage now in this battle, but have this attitude where you equalize joy and sorrow gain and loss, victory and defeat, and you engage in battle this way. What does this mean? It means that a true seeker acts for growth and not for personal gain. The only way that we will be able to be equanimous when engaging in something is if we are engaging in it for the purpose of God, for the purpose of growing towards God, growing towards the truth, purifying ourselves, then we can be equanimous. If we are engaging in a selfish pursuit, there's no way we can be equanimous. There's no way. We will have a lot of joys and sorrows, ups and downs, all kinds of things will be there. So if we're feeling this fluctuation, it means we're engaged in a selfish pursuit. There's some selfishness there. So then, proceeding further, we also saw along these lines, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi, that the true seeker has the infinite as the goal instead of infinite goals. And this brings us to a very, very beautiful portion, the topic number 7, which is Karma Yoga Buddhi. So we had Sankhya Buddhi, we had the topic of knowledge. Now we have the topic of Karma Yoga. Why do we have this topic of Karma Yoga? Because Karma Yoga prepares us for Sankhya Yoga. And here in this topic, we saw the difference between Karma Yoga and regular karma. Karma Yoga, these you already know, but I've just listed it out, how Karma Yoga, we actually focus on the process and enjoy it. But regular karma, we focus too much on the result. Karma Yoga is selfless. Regular karma is selfish. Karma Yoga, we can remain equipoise. Regular karma, up and down. Karma Yoga results in purified mind. Regular karma, agitated mind. Karma Yoga leads us to the knowledge of the self. Regular karma leads us to bondage, further bondage. And in this very beautiful chapter, we saw these key verses of Karma Yoga. Now I'm just going to highlight them because we've already gone through them. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalla heturbhuvu ma te sangostu karmani. Very, very famous verse that tells us to just focus on our dharma and accept whatever comes, accept it and not to obsess about it. We also saw very beautifully that samatvam yoga uchyate, evenness of mind is called yoga. And again, how do we remain equanimous? We can only really remain equanimous if our purpose is pure, our intention is selfless and pure. Otherwise, if there's attachment, if there's sangha, we're going to fluctuate, that's for sure. And he says, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. The beauty of yoga is it's in skill in action. What is the skill of karma yoga? Is that we're able to perform action without getting bound. That is the skill of karma yoga. Regular karma, we perform action and we get bound. So it's the same effort, the same time, the same everything. So why not adapt that attitude of karma yoga? And more of karma yoga will be in chapter 3. Chapter 3 itself is called Karma Yoga. So Karma Yogi, we saw, always succeeds because success for a Karma Yogi is inner growth. Numbers are up, numbers are down, people come, people don't come, this happened, that happened. For a Karma Yogi, the most important thing is inner growth. Am I growing? And of course, if done with the right attitude, one will always grow. Then that is success. That is real success in life, is when we grow inwards and we evolve. Topics 8 and 9. So topics 8 and 9 very simply say the result of Karma Yoga Buddhi and Sankhya Buddhi. The result of Karma Yoga Buddhi is Vairagya. So we saw this. Karma Yoga brings us purification of the mind and Vairagya. And Sankhya Buddhi, Sankhya, remember, means knowledge, that knowledge of the self. It directly leads us to self-realization. So these two results were very clearly stated in chapter 2. We come to the last topic. The last topic was Sthitaprajna Lakshana. Sthitaprajna Lakshana is that Arjuna was so curious to know the person who's self-realized and who's steady in that. Remember, who's steady in that realization, who's effortlessly abiding in that realization. That's called Sthitaprajna. How do they speak? How do they walk? How do they sit? And these are the short answers. The main quality of a Sthitaprajna is desirelessness. So the root of everything is desirelessness. There's no desires because they're content in the self. Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. So this is the main quality. How do they speak? If you summarize those verses, what's the essence? The speech is prompted by equanimity. So Sthitaprajna speech is prompted by equanimity. They don't get overexcited, over sad, bounce up and down. They don't go through those phases. How do they sit? With the mind and senses perfectly, effortlessly under control with no rasa. Remember the example of the turtle. They're able to withdraw their senses and keep them there because there's no vasana pushing them out into the world. Why is there no vasana pushing them into the world? Because param drishtva nivardate. They've realized the self. For what will they go out in the world? What will they do? How do they move in the world? They move self-controlled, free from likes and dislikes, and they're ever content. And they see the world very beautifully. They are awake to that truth, which the ignorant is ever asleep. This is called Sthitaprajna. There is a very beautiful Sanskrit verse. I will just chant it. It's from Dhanyashtakam. And it'll tell you how a Sthitaprajna lives in this world. Sampurnam Jagadeva Nandanavanam Sarvepi Kalpadruma Gangam Vari Samastavari Nivaha Punya Samasta Kriyaha Vacha Prakrita Samskrita Shruti Shiro Varanasi Medini Sarvavasthitirasya Vastu Vishaya Drishte Parabrahmani. Drishte Parabrahmani. To somebody who realizes Brahman, what happens? Sampurnam Jagadeva Nandanavanam. The whole world becomes like a very beautiful garden. Sarvepi Kalpa Druma. All the trees become like the wish-fulfilling tree. Gangam Vari Samasta Vari Nivaha. All the rivers that are flowing are like Ganga. Punya Samasta Kriyaha. Every action that flows from them is punya. It's automatic. It's just merit. Vacha Prakrita Samskrita Shruti Shiraha. And their words, even if it's so simple, like daily, simple speaking words, it's actually the depth of the Shastra. We can see in our saints and sages, they spoke some things very simply, and then the implication is so deep. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is famous for that. Puja Guruji also. When they speak, it's like so deep. Varanasi Medini. And the whole world to them is like Kashi, Varanasi. Sarva avastiti astu asya vastu vishaya. Their thoughts, all the thoughts are constantly reminding them of Brahman. So that person who has realized Brahman, to them, this world becomes a very, very beautiful place. Beautiful place. Actually, to them, this world is God. This world is God. And this is chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. So now you can see how packed it is, how beautiful it is. And my prayer is that for all of us too, to realize this truth and abide steadily in this, so that we too can experience the bliss of the self.